Hello, everyone. It's Mike Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. So on the road here in Dallas, Texas, doing a LifeWave event and really good information. The Dallas group is like phenomenal. Everybody's like totally tapped in. People of Texas are amazing. So U.S. must have the elections this fall, or there will be a massive revolt. All right, so we're moving in the direction where we're going to get free elections, free and fair. But if they're not, there will be a revolt. All right, conservatives have been very patient. We've been, working with other groups to move towards, resolving, issues that are happening in our country. The infiltration of the deep state is, everyone's pretty much aware of it now. You have 70 to 80% of people now want the SAVE Act to go through, but Congress is dragging its feet. You have probes that are supposed to be going at, after John Brennan. He should be, put away by now, but the Senate's dragging its feet on it. So we're not going to put up with this much longer. We're not going to put up with this much longer. All right. So there must be probably an executive order or a suspension of habeas corpus like President Lincoln did. Something will happen or the people will get involved, and that will be ugly. Right. We will not allow the Democrats to come back in. They've already said that they're going to come they're going to take everything back, and they're going to come after us. In a way that's going to just shut everything down. We'll never, ever get back in power again. We, being conservative people that love our country, we will not let that happen, right? There will be an absolute revolt, right? It's not going to happen. All right, so this has to move forward. Now, President Trump and other people drop tidbits of info. They do information probes to see where the population is, to see how they respond to different things. A good example is where, they had the thing where President Trump went after the Pope. And we all know that the Pope in the Vatican and, the Catholic Church, for a great extent, is completely corrupt, right? This is not anything new to those of us that are awake. So he basically, poked that bear, and he wanted to see how people would respond. And I think for the most part, we're seeing a good response. All right, so these are things that happen. We saw the blast off of the spaceship that no one believes in. Whatever happened with that, if that was real. This whole technology. I heard Carrie Cassidy. She's an expert in this field. She's like, what? Who cares? It's old technology. We know that we have very, very advanced technology, and I'm of the same opinion. I'm part of the secret space program, have been since I was a kid, have memories of all that stuff. I've been talking about it. Hundreds of people have been talking about it for a long time. We have been to the moon where it's a satellite. There's an empty, moon base there. There is, Mars, every Saturn, around the moons of Saturn. I've talked about all this. And so have a lot of the people. So we have the technology, but they probe, they see where people are at. And there was a huge pushback from people that don't even believe we went to the moon, right? We've been to the moon. There's moon base. There's surface dwelling. There's all kind of crazy stuff that's already going on the moon. So we do little probes. We, me, other, truthers, all the truthers are on board with all this. I look at some of the truthers put information out there and I'm like, oh God. So, and it's, it's a process of bringing people to a greater realization of different things. But if they do a probe and people are, massively against, something and don't believe in something on a massive scale, they're just going to pull back. Right? We're not going to get full disclosure. We're not going to get, we're working with ETs. We're not going to get all the stuff that, and we have an ET race that's pretty much controlling the earth right now. Negative ET race controls the earth. So, of course, they control that information. They control the Vatican, and they control the city of London, and they to a great extent, to up until President Trump got in office, they controlled D.C., the 3 city states, right? So President Trump has turned at least the city state of Washington, D.C. around, and probably not completely, of course. We have Congress and the Senate that needs to be cleaned out, right? And we have been told for decades upon decades that the way we get things right is we vote the good people in. Well, we know that people are being selected. We're not selecting them, but through our vote, they're being selected to get in the position so they can create fraud and steal from us and create our military, which has been used by the deep state for decades, right? So all of that's being turned around. That's what's happening in Iran. It's basically going after the deep state's main source. So talking about Draco reptilians, Iran's full of them, right? So portals and all kind of bullshit going on there. So President Trump is going in to shut all that shit down. So a lot of people don't have any clue about this. It's okay. You don't have to know everything. I don't know everything. Probably President Trump doesn't know everything, right? But to a great extent, he does, and the group that's with him does as well. So a lot of people that are informed see this as our last ditch chance, basically, to take back our country and the world, right? I believe it's going to happen, but I see little setbacks in the consciousness of humanity. So I have to point that out because it is very important that we as a whole, we the people as a whole, the world, start to push back on the evil controllers, right? All right, so Iran must fall. All right, I've said it over and over again. President Trump has been squeezing, taking out their leadership, taking out their their Navy, their Air Force, and their missile batteries, and air defense, and so forth and so on. Took out their nuclear, which was their nuke capacity was going to be used by the deep state to basically control anyone that got out of line. And President Trump was dropping those hints where Meloni, who is the head of Italy, she came out and said she was very critical of President Trump going after Pope, who butters her bread, right? Who's her money daddy, right? So that's what she has to do, because obviously she seems to be not the same person anymore. That's what Trump said, right? She doesn't seem to be the same person anymore. So that's very interesting, because we see some of these people get replaced, or some of these people get their chains yanked hard, right? So which was it for her? Maybe both. I don't know. And so Trump has said, "Hey, the Pope, you don't think we should be going after Iran? They could launch a missile." So he's telling everybody, what was going to come, what was going to be the control system, right? So Italy gets out of line. Meloni says the wrong thing, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to nuke you." And then somebody would have got nuked, right? Maybe somebody's still going to get nuked. I don't know. So, it's a lot of people say there's never been nukes before. I don't agree with that, but because I used to work with the nukes myself, the backpack nukes, I was going to jump one of those suckers in if things got out of control in Russia. But some people just aren't going to understand or believe or whatever. That's okay, right? But know that some of us that know what's going on. Some of us know, like I was told when I came across country and I met a gentleman on my way over, just happened to. He told me that what you're revealing is really good about the space program. The space program is very, very advanced, 100 years more than most people understand. And we are in space. I was like, wow, thank you for that. So baloney, yeah, absolutely, truther. Right, so in their song, something like that. But baloney. All right, so we have to overcome a lot of this ridiculousness, and we will, right? One way or another. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna get you. All right, so it's very frustrating for a lot of us that reveal information. I had Patty Greer on just recently, and we talked about the crop circles, and she was kind of hesitant. She was like, maybe I shouldn't talk about the crop circles, right? So I was like, come on. She must have been intuiting something, because when we talked and we shared that on Amazon or her crop circle stuff, she said that after our show, for the first time in 15 years, she could not access her accounts. They closed her down, right? So these are some of the things that, we all go through. They come after, our ability to earn income, to, influence and so forth. We get spanked if we start an influence on a certain level. But great for Patty Greer. She pushed the envelope and went out there and did it again. And now they awakened everybody, she awakened everybody back to crop circles again, that it is information that's being shared with us with higher consciousness beings and so forth. Now, I think that it's tied to the secret space program stuff. I think the deep state basically got hold of some of that, and they're controlling as much as they can. I think the negative ETs basically have helped them out quite a bit. But we've had a lot of people that have come through and shared information. A lot of them are gone, right? Some of them are still around. They know how to, like Bob Lazar. It's like, oh, that alien thing that I saw through the window, it could have been just a dummy. I'm not sure that it was actually an alien. Now, he told other people that it was. He was absolutely sure it was an alien. But, when he comes out and speaks in public, he backs off that. And now I know a lot of you out there, and I've heard this, when I release stuff as well, you're like, you should be releasing that stuff. It's like, yeah, I want to stay alive. All right. You get a nice little tidbit of information and I'm dead. No, I'm not going to share everything. So that's the way a lot of us are. We can't give you everything because they show us what happens when people give up really good information. They're suicided. They die mysteriously. They have heart attacks, all kind of crazy stuff. So heart attack machine. Talking about the heart attack machine, they used it on me. It didn't work, right? So, but they've used other things, and that didn't work either. So, like Bob Lazar and other people have said, we seem to be protected, right? So, I think that is actually, in my case, that's what's happening. And I look at Carrie Cassidy. I've seen her get hammered. You can see when she's been hammered. She's like, every show she does, she seems like she's getting hammered. I don't know. If it's not in her internet, it's some other way. So I talk about how she's gotten hammered. So I think physically been hammered, and she talks about that as well. So it is frustrating, trying to put this information out there, and then you get, half the population or more doesn't get it at all, and attack you and say it's all bullshit. Yeah, we've never been to the moon. It's like, that's bullshit. We've been to the moon, all right? And so you're like, well, how do we get through the Van Allen belt? We had help, all right? Somebody helped some of those Apollo missions get through, guys, all right? And, well, I heard that the ET said they couldn't go back there and get the hell out of there, reptilians. And it's like, yeah, they probably did. That's probably why we backed up. I don't know. But there is a lot of stuff that is, like I said, very, very advanced. I've seen some advanced stuff, but, the stuff I saw was like only 25 years more advanced. And it's like, the stuff that I saw way back is like, already come out, like the GPS stuff, right? GPS stuff was like, I was working with that stuff when they first started putting up satellites, right? So, and that was back in, the early 80s, right? I was working with lasers, laser target designators, where we would laser target, and they would drop a bomb way in a distance, and it would have a cone that would basically seek that signal, and we'd light up a target, and it would like see it, and it'd go in and blow it up, right? So, and then they were like, doing it from a cockpit. Then they started doing it from the cockpit. The pilots were doing it, and now it's like the technology is way more advanced, right? Laser, no, that's old school stuff. So, but they still talk about, blasting off. They show us a blast off of the rockets. Portaling, that's, how they have those rings that are in every city. In London, they're building like a whole bunch of rings in Miami now. I'm like, geez, they're like going to portal out the whole city. through them, or bring some negatives in through those portals. But those portals are going to be the way we're going to travel in the future, right? So every city is going to have a portal, and people will go through the portal to another city, to the moon. I don't know why we go to the moon. There's nothing really there. It's a base with multiple different ET groups, as well as humans. And would you go to Venus? Would you like to go to Venus? And because I've talked about going to Venus myself, it's quite fantastic. I have a home in one of my lives in the secret space program on one of the moons in Saturn. So there's lots of stuff that we're going to be exposed to, but when you have half the population, like a pack of hyenas, that's all bullshit. It's like, well, we're still not advanced, enough for them to reveal more. So they'll give a little tidbit info, and they're checking to see where the current state of humanity and their consciousness is at. If they look around and it's like yes, we're going back to the moon, good, or we never even been to the moon, bullshit. And so, okay, we're not gonna go forward, all right, in that project. So let's go over here. Let's see if we can expose the deep state within China, or the deep state in Iran, or the deep state in NATO, or the deep state here, and see what the how the public responds to that. Or let's talk about how we're going to do the SAVE Act and see how the public responds to that. Like 70, 80, almost 80% of people are like, pass that thing. And they're like, okay, that's good. So we can push on that. And so that's what they're doing. They're pushing the SAVE Act. All right, you got John Thune and some of these other buffoons that are in there that are trying to resist it. And they're being exposed. They're being exposed so everybody can see. Why is it that, and everybody's thinking and talking, why is it that 70%, even Democrats want to, people to show up and show their identity and that they're U.S. citizens, even Democrats. And so they're like, everybody's being exposed. There you go. Everybody wants it done, but they can't get it passed. Why is that? All right. So that's part of the exposure. And that's what we have to see. All right. So now another thing that I had Peter Tickton. All right, Peter Tickton. Let me share the screen. He was great. We had a poor connection. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk too much. I just let him run, and boy, he's like said everything. I was like, and everybody in the chat was like, just let him talk. I was like, yeah, that's all I can do. And he did. He just went over all the points that he wants to get solved and, get advanced if he becomes Attorney General. So, he goes all the way back to, high school with President Trump. They were in military academy together. So he's quite a stunning gentleman. Now, a lot of you were like, I wouldn't say a lot, but there were a few comments in there that he's old. Let's get somebody new. No. You have to be old to understand these systems and the problems that are there. Right? He's like 15 years. He's only 15 years older than I am. I'm 65 and he's 80. Trump is 79. It takes a while to work through the bullshit, guys, to figure it out and then work through it. He's got a great plan. He's very focused. He says, he talks about Hillary Clinton. He's like, basically saying, he knows that all these people died. He's like, what good is all the money? So he's like, he's very successful, just like Trump. I don't know if at that level, but he has a very successful law business. And he's like, I don't need this, but what good is all the money that I have if we don't have a country? I was like, and everybody's like, wow, that was a good point, right? What good is our country if we continue to allow these savages that are trying to come in and control our country to steal our votes? Again, one more time. This is the last time, right? If it gets stolen again, all right. there will be an arising, right? That's an indicator that they have failed completely. And we have been very patient. We've been waiting. We've been in the wings. What help do you need? How do we support this going forward? If it gets stolen again, guys, it's the end. So you need to start to talk about that, right? I'm talking about that. And that needs to go all the way up. So Trump hears that. The Trump team hears that. And they're like, okay, we don't want that. All right. We don't want them to take matters into their own hands. They gave us the green light to do it. All right. To do what we need to do to make sure that election is clean and pure, right? Clean and pure. Maybe like the last election, they'll let some states be exposed again, like California, Illinois, New York, so that the people in those states can see, because New York is obviously still compromised. Look at New York City. They just voted in a freaking communist that promised them everything and hasn't delivered on any of them, right? It's why is he still there, right? He promised you guys all that stuff, New Yorkers, and why is he still there, right? You guys need to figure that out, right? You need to get together and push back. So that's one of the things that we're seeing. We'll continue to see that until people start to get together, work together to overcome this crippling bullshit that's infiltrated throughout our whole country, every county, every state, everywhere. All right. So we're seeing a little bit of cleanup here and there, but another. I promise you, if that November election, if they let that go through and it gets stolen, that's it. All right. We'll see what happens. And it's not going to be pretty. All right. So that's my thoughts on that. That's my thoughts. All right. Who knows? Maybe I'm just full of shit. It'll get stolen and then no one do anything. And then we'll just, we'll have to, you see all these people that are running from America right now, because they know they're corrupt and they're very bad, right? We have a lot of people that have run from United States, and then we have people that are coming to the United States, like Canadians, by massive numbers. Now, John Thune, Senate has delayed weaponization prosecutors and John Brennan probe for 2 months. So this is very easily handled. Now, a lot of us have said that John Brennan will be the first major one to go. Now, we just saw Swalwell. We just saw Swalwell get taken down. He was huge. He was going to run for governor, and they probably would have inserted him as governor of California. And Swalwell is like as corrupt as they can be. And so that got exposed. And of course, they're like, you take one of ours, we take one of yours. So we gave him Gonzalez from Texas, where I'm at right now. So Gonzalez is just as bad, as not worse than, a lot of these guys. And Swalwell is one of them. Right. So both those guys are gone, or will be, or who knows, maybe they just said they're going to go and they're still there. I don't know, guys. What a shit show we got for our government right now. But, they're supposedly, done. They resigned. So what does resignation mean? Does it mean that they're gone in November? Or is it gone next month, this month? What does it mean? So we haven't seen that. So is that a domino thing? That needs to be a domino thing. We need to start seeing these guys get taken down left and right now, and pick up in speed. And I think that's a possibility. But, again, they just did that, and they're checking the pulse of America, and they're saying, do you guys like that? Do you want more of that? All right. We'll see. I want more of that. I want massive amounts of that. What do you guys think? We, the people, decide. All right. Earlier this year, the U.S. Justice Department asked 2 Senate committees to provide transcripts and records of contacts with former CIA Director John Brennan regarding the now discredited Russia collusion allegations, which basically Trump's, first term was like just hammered by this bullshit. Before he even got into office, they're trying to push this and get his election annulled. All right. But he was able to, push through all that and finally get in office. And they just kept hammering him over and over again, trying to impeach him twice. It was quite a shit show, right? We watched it. We're like, what a shit show. And then they came in with the bioweapon, COVID-19 bullshit, and then had the mail-in ballots, and that's how they stole the election before the last one, 2020. It's not over yet. So we have a lot of stuff that's being revealed about that one as well. So 2 months later, the body run by Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune, who is a bad boy and needs to go bye-bye, has not complied, slowing the key angle of a grand jury investigation based in Fort Pierce, Florida, into whether Obama and Biden-era government officials engaged in a conspiracy to weaponize law enforcement and intelligence tools to harm President Trump and his followers, right? And they did a pretty jam-up job when they had their Joe Biden, right? And his crackhead son, Hunter, who's like left the United States because he's under threat of being arrested. But you can run, but you can't hide. So eventually that boy will be pulled back if he hasn't already stood some time in Guantanamo. I don't know, but I think maybe he has. So they're going to continue to push and squeeze and narrow the escape routes and cut everything down. I just saw recently and people are bitching about it, where President Trump is like, yeah, maybe we'll allow those surveillance cameras to stay a little bit. Why would that be? So they keep an eye on those. But then, of course, you have those people testing the waters. Then you have those people who are like, oh, this bullshit. Is like, well, you didn't complain when they were put up to begin with, obviously, because they're up. And so now you want to complain because President Trump is going to have them stay a little while. Stay a little while longer. So if it stays a little while longer, we can keep track of these criminals that are trying to get away. I think that's really why he wants to keep that there and keep track of criminals that are doing all kinds of bad things. All right. So that's my take on that. Now, if you want to just look at everything that Trump, like the deep state does, and the press and the corrupt politicians and all the people throughout the world that screw you, Macron and all those other people that are out there that like criticize our president. You're criticizing because it's coming for you, right? And it's just a matter of time. All right, so we're going to continue to see these things. We'll see a little bit of info test probing, info probes. So start keeping an eye on those guys. So now that you understand why President Trump does those, hopefully most of you did anyway. I think I'm just preaching to the choir right now, but I think there's probably still some people out there who don't get it. That's why I just kind of Navy SEAL, 24 years, 11 years CIA, and like maybe I know a few things. I don't know, maybe. All right. So the stock market decided to go big. Now, why is that? You've been following me for a little while. You know that oil goes down, stocks go up. All right. So oil went down really big because President Trump and supposedly Iran. Now, how many times have I told you that Iran and the Shiites, the shits as I call them, they're very corrupt. They're very evil. They're about as wicked as they can be. They're like Nazis on steroids. They're forcing some issues that have to be resolved. Hezbollah, Hamas, and of course in Iran, they're a minority. How do they get so much damn power? Because they're violent and they're psychopaths. Whereas most of Muslims are very peaceful. Most, not all. So you're like, well, the Sunni are like so peaceful. Yeah. They're so peaceful they can be, told to like give part of their money to terrorist organizations like CARE and all these other ones that basically support terrorism, right, throughout the world. So that's how that works. So all the Muslims in the United States and all across the world basically have to give certain amounts of their money to these organizations that basically fund terrorism. Hello. All right. So yeah, that's not good. That's not good. So yeah, they're peaceful, but they're manipulatable to the point where they can, I guess it's kind of like the United States. We get taxed and property taxed and all that bullshit. And they use that to basically go against us, pay for these illegal aliens to come in and take over our countries. All right. So yeah, the taxation is a bad thing. It's across the board. Who knows? Maybe the Sunni, because remember, who was Osama bin Laden? He was a Sunni from Saudi Arabia, right? And Saudi Arabia, for the most part, not as much anymore. They have softened quite a bit because the women folk put pressure on them. We want to drive, and so no, you can't drive. You're a woman. It's like bullshit. And so women got out and drove, and now I don't know if they're allowed to drive now, but I remember that was a big thing in Saudi Arabia many years ago. They didn't want to wear their burqas. I don't think they got away with getting rid of that one, but Saudi Arabia. You're like, well, in the United States, we have all these mosques, and in Texas, don't mess with Texas. Well, the Muslims are at Texans, big time, right? Even though your governor acts like he's, pushing back on them, but they still are building more mosques in Texas than anywhere else. Probably anywhere else in the world. I don't know. Maybe. Let's do a study on that. Let's send taxpayer money to Texans taxpayer money to do a study on, how many mosques are being built all over the world, and is Texas making more mosques than anywhere else in the world? And then they'll come back and it's like, yes, Texas is making more mosques than anywhere else in the world. It took us $100 million to figure that out, right? So corruption, everywhere you look, it's pathetically disgusting, right? And we have to clean it up. And if we believe that these idiots will allow us to vote them out and vote somebody good in with the old system that's been manipulating us for decades, we are morons, right? It ain't going to happen. So that's why we have to start to push until we get a free and fair election this November. And if it doesn't happen, the pushing's going to get real severe on the other side of that. All right. So those people that are involved in making that happen, there's a lot of people out there that are really doing great work out there, setting examples. I've had some of them on my show. It's going to take all of us getting together and making sure this happens. All right. So let's look at, what happened with the stock market on Friday when Trump said that the Iranians have said that they are going to let the Strait of Hormuz be open again, right? And so the stock market went, oh my God, let's go up. We've been holding back so long. Although April 1st, when that spaceship went out in space, same date, right? So all these things were happening. Was it a distraction? What happened? Stock market went up from that point to all-time highs. NASDAQ and the S&P hit all-time highs the day before, I think Thursday, and on Friday, of course, they hit another massive all-time high. The S&P was having all kinds of problems, going over 7,000. Look at that. It's 7,000. Look at that big pump. Woo! Big pump, right? So it pumped, and it went high. It went way over 7,000, which was resistance. The NASDAQ also went to all-time highs. The Dow looked like it was trying to do it on Friday. It was getting close to over 50,000, but it pulled back a little bit. Maybe somebody knew that something would happen today, right? So Bitcoin is down. Maybe they know something because it was up big. And so, we'll have to see. we're going to have to see if President Trump can come back and work his magic again, the art of the deal. Will it happen on Monday? Because if not, you're going to see that stock market go down again, right? So I've said that the stock market would go to ridiculously new highs, but I said it would probably pull back 10 to 20%. Well, it got a little bit down below 10%, and then it said, all right, let's go back up. President Trump is talking sweet magic. He's got the gift of the gab, and so art of the deal. And we went up from from lows to new highs, right? And so these will not be the highs, and then I go back down. We will go to ridiculous highs, like I've said for quite some time. We'll probably see a pullback, and then we'll go to ridiculous highs, right? So we saw a pullback. It's not as deep as I would have liked it, but it is what it is, all right? Because President Trump is like, he get to the gab, right? So it's like, yeah, we're talking to the Iranians, and they're going to work with us. And that guy, Mike Jaco, he spent all that time over there. He's a pretty smart guy, but yeah, Trump probably talks about me like not. But anyway, he's, juggling, and he's doing a very good job of it. Juggle. And I don't know how many things he's got in there juggling, but he's doing a pretty good job. And so it comes down to the point where what is really going to happen here? Are we going to go in and kick their ass? Well, while this is going on, more supplies are coming, more missiles, more drones, more personnel. All right, we'll just call it personnel. All right, personnel that know how to use weapon systems. All right, and put their feet on the ground and run around inside foreign nations. All right, and make bad guys go bye-bye. So it keeps building. So they keep seeing that they're all their little spies, because they have spies everywhere. All right, they have spies in our press, they have spies in our Congress. They're all paid, pay spies, and so they're like telling things, and we have spies in our military. It's just so much deep state activity out there, and President Trump is working around that, doing good stuff. But sometimes they get one, sometimes we get two, and sometimes they don't get one and we get two more, and sometimes they get two and we get four, and so ahead, but we're constantly moving ahead. All right, we're squeezing, getting rid of deep state puppets here and there, behind the scenes, all kind of stuff. Infiltrated means, Elizabeth, that they have moved in to different positions with their little controllers, right? That make things happen in the military and business and Congress and so forth. Like Jonathan, not passing or giving, investigators what they need to basically arrest, people that need to be arrested, right? So, and that's what we're seeing. So it's being exposed on one end, but nothing's happening on the other. So how much exposure does it take, like a Swalwell, to the point where it basically we can't resist this anymore? It's too much, right? So then it goes down, right? So what's next? Who's next? That will be interesting. So Brennan should be first within that group. So you got Brennan, Obama, all those, FBI director. You got Clapper. You got so many that have to go away. But one has to start. You have to have the first domino go, right? So there's lots of things that have to happen before that domino falls and starts to press the other ones. All right. So what else we got going on? So Iran, U.S.-Israel war live. So we have India summons Iranian envoy over firing at Indian tankers. So Israel attacked Lebanon again. So Iran is like, deals off. And so they shot at 14 India-bound ships were reportedly intercepted and attacked by IRGC. Now, the IRGC, if you go back in time and you look at Rome, you had the Praetorian Guard, which basically decided who was going to be and who would stay emperor. And so they were basically a Roman legion, not legion, but Roman group, soldiers, warriors, whatever, that worked their way up to controlling, who they were the puppet masters. So they would put people. So best what the IRGC is for the rulers of Iran. They're protectors and they're puppet masters, right? So if they lose someone that they were protecting and puppet mastering, like happened with their Khomeini with Israel strikes, they don't care. They're still there. They're still in control. They still have the power. Now you have the Iranian military, which is separate, right? It's separate. And they keep the Iranian, like the Roman legions and all that kind of stuff. The Praetorian Guard kept them separate, right? So whoever they puppet mastered as the emperor, then the emperor would say, okay, let's send the legion out to this country, to Gaul, and let's take Gaul, or let's take the German tribes, and German tribes are like, slaughter them. And it's like, okay, let's send them over to take the Persians, and the Persians slaughter them. It's like, send them running. And same thing with the Germans. So now some did really well. Who did really well? Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar went up there and kicked their ass, right? And then so those controllers, the deep state, all the way back then, they went, just did the old knifey, as many times as it took to make Caesar fall down and go bye-bye, right? So that is pretty much what the IRGC is, guys. They're controllers of whoever's in it. So the IRGC, the Shia mofos, have to go bye-bye, right? They're going to continue this. I'm telling you, they're going to continue this. Going to go back and forth. I've fought these mofos for a long time. The only thing they understand is if they go bye-bye, they're gone. And or someone with so much power gets in there that they can't pull their bullshit, right? So, but eventually they will work their way back up. So they have to either be convinced very strongly, very powerfully, that they are no longer going to exert themselves. Until that point is reached, we'll see deals, and all that is just giving them time to reinvigorate, focus, and get ready for the next round of kicking ass, right? That's my thoughts on that. So I don't know. I hope President Trump can pull something off, but I don't think he's gonna, right? I think we're just gonna continue to do this until we absolutely have to go in and annihilate them, right? But we'll see. Now, there's other things that are going on in the world. If you guys haven't been aware, I will help you become more aware. And that is, I've been saying that there's going to be, because I did at the beginning of the year, I did a forecast of what's coming. My forecasts have been they're getting better and better and better, right? Betterer and betterer and more better. So the ones that I did for this year is the earthquake activity we saw last year was pretty devastating. It's going to be far more devastating this year. Now we look at Camp Flegrei, and there's kind of like what I've been saying. I've been saying that Camp Flegrei will probably go. It will probably blow big. All right, let's see what On the Pulse with Silky says.
Escape routes blocked and school evacuated because of high temperatures and volcanic gas emissions. So news from Campi Flegrei, well, we just had another strong earthquake storm that has calmed down a little bit right now, but we're still seeing earthquakes. So what the heck is going on at the supervolcano Campi Flegrei near Naples, with more than 6 million people that are clogged in between two monsters, Campi Flegrei and Vesuvius. So that's not really great, the news that we're hearing right now. And it's not just some person who's saying this. Giuseppe Di Natale, we've heard a lot from him. I've reported a lot about him. He works for the INGV, has worked in the leading position in the INGV, has given continuous warnings throughout the years, basically since 2018, but that is not so unlikely, and it happens without warning. We know, White Island style. A school in Pozzuoli had to close. Again, we've had that last year. Homes, schools, people were feeling dizzy in their homes, and they didn't know what it is. Gas, it was gas. Carbon dioxide levels in the school, in the basement, were measured so high that authorities shut the building down and they ordered further investigations. Well, they should know what it is. They had to close down schools if just a stronger earthquake hits. And we've seen this before also last year, when the head of the INGV, like the Vesuvius Observatory, they are the ones that are giving out the warnings that should give the public information about that volcano. They're also in this area. So when there was a strong earthquake, magnitude 4.4 or 4.6, their personnel couldn't even get there because there was a road closure on the main highway that is built with a lot of bridges and columns and very, very vulnerable. That's their main escape route. This is where all the escape routes from the city lead to. So again, these members.
So you have 6 million people that are supposed to go through those bridges, right? So if the earthquake that comes, that's a warning, like we've seen for a lot of these volcanoes that eventually erupt. You get a massive earthquake, and that's because of the lava pool is pushing closer to the surface. It causes an earthquake. And then not long after that, we get a massive eruption, right? So that's probably the way it's going to work out there at Campi Flegrei. And then you're going to have people trying to go over those bridges, like she was just pointing out. Some of those bridges are still closed because they're building them, right? So, and you saw how they're up on stilts. Those things will get shaky. And if the volcanic lava, whatever, like we're heading into that area, you got 6 million people who are trapped. Wow. Right. Not a good plan. Not a good plan to build on, areas where there's potential for massive volcanic activity or earthquakes. So, that's the way it is in Italy. They don't need an atomic bomb hitting them. They're going to have like Campi Flegrei that's going to take out 6 million. So, we don't have to worry about Iran, shooting a missile over there. They're just going to take out millions. Going to go. I hope not, but that's what I'm seeing, unfortunately. So now, many people dismiss this, just like they dismiss, the moon landings and technologies that are out there. Now, let me show you what happened where you have the government. You can trust the government. Where the government of Peru basically poo-pooed the scientists that went up and said, hey, you need to be aware that this town with 20,000 people in it is at extreme risk, because if this volcano goes, earthquake, volcano, then you will have probably everyone in this town die. And they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just scientists. Go away.
The warning was real. The bureaucracy was fatal. The population of Yungay kept growing. Sunday, May 31st, 19...
All right, remember these 4 trees right here.
3:23 p.m. People were settling into a quiet afternoon under a mountain that had been studied, argued over, and politically neutralized. A magnitude 7.9 earthquake, the strongest to strike Peru in recorded history, ruptured offshore. The shaking lasted 45 seconds. A typical destructive earthquake is over in 15. This one refused to stop. Adobe walls didn't just crack, they exploded outward. Heavy clay roofs pancaked straight down. Dust rose so fast it blocked the afternoon sun. People who stumbled into the streets stood in near darkness and thought they had just survived the worst. They hadn't. 30 seconds into the shaking, 18,000 feet up the western face of Huascarán Norte, the fractured mass Bernays had identified gave way. It started as 265 million cubic feet of rock and ice, 7 Empire State Buildings compressed into a single block, torn loose from the mountain face. As the mass hit the lower glacier and...
All right, so we've seen something typical like this as happened in Switzerland last year. Not on the massive scale of this one, but this is something that you need to be aware of. We're going to see more of this on a massive scale going forward.
Or down slope, something unusual happened. Under that kind of pressure, ice doesn't hold. It melts. The flow became extraordinarily mobile. Meltwater and pulverized rock, turning the base into something close to a frictionless surface. Think of a car hydroplaning on a wet highway at 80 miles an hour. Total loss of grip, total loss of control. Now make that car weigh 1 billion tons. The mass wasn't sliding, it was flying. As it flew, it gorged. Boulders, moraine, glacial lakes, all swept up and absorbed. By the time the flow reached the valley floor, it had expanded from 265 million cubic feet to nearly 3.5 billion. Enough to bury all of Manhattan under 5 feet of solid rock in under 4 minutes. Average speed across the 9-mile run to Yungay, 175 to 210 miles per hour. Peak velocity in the upper chute, above 280. Faster than an Indy car at full throttle. At 3:26 p.m., the mass hit Cerro Aira. At 200 miles an hour, a rock wall doesn't act like a shield. It acts like a ramp. Its momentum carried it up and over the ridge, sending a destructive lobe down into Yungay. The ridge that had defined the city as safe for 8 years became the launch pad for its destruction. Down in Yungay, the sky turned pitch black before the wall arrived. Not from clouds, but from the hurricane-force dust moving ahead of it. Mateo Casaverde, a Peruvian geophysicist present in the valley that afternoon, later wrote one line in his official report. The sky went dark and Yungay disappeared. A surviving witness said it sounded like 1,000 commercial jets flying 50 feet overhead. First came the wind, then the dust, then the mountain. By 3:27 p.m.,
All right, so there's those 4 palm trees. All right, everything else is buried.
After the earthquake began, Yungay ceased to exist. The plaza, the cathedral, the market, the streets, buried under debris, in places dozens of feet deep. By the following morning, that debris had locked up like poured concrete. The earthquake had broken the town. The avalanche erased it. But scattered across the rubble, a handful of people were still breathing, and the difference between them and 20,000 dead came down to one thing. On Cerro Mirador, the terraced municipal cemetery above the city, crowned by a white statue of Cristo Blanco.
All right, the white Christ. So, standing, that's where children ran, fortunately. And they have this silly ass story of a clown that blew his pipe. It's like, who comes up with this shit? Who knows if that really happened? I doubt it. But these baddies have to throw in their bullshit. So supposedly this clown was like blowing his pipe and marched the little kids up to the mountain there. Now, some of these children, because it was, I guess, in waves, some of this debris, and some of the children ran, unfortunately, back down into town, never seen again. So note to self, if you're in something like this, go to high ground, not towards the volcano, of course, high ground, but somewhere high ground, far away, hopefully, and don't go back. Don't go back, because that will be the death of you.
People who ran toward it when the sound began reached the upper tiers. The flow scoured the lower terraces clean. Around 90 survivors stood on the upper steps and watched their city disappear below them. Near the eastern edge of town, Circo Verolina had set up at Estadio Fernandez, a sports ground on slightly elevated ground. It was a Sunday afternoon. The show was scheduled for 3:30 p.m. Dozens of children had come without their parents. A Sunday trip to the circus, parents still at home or in the market at the center of the city. The earthquake hit at 3:23. Around 260 children and their teachers were already at the...
All right, so 260 children and their teachers ran to high ground, but only 90 survived because the other ones ran back into town to go see if they could help or go be with their parents or whatever. So again, don't go back. So I think this is beautiful. The children ran to Christ and Christ protected them.
Stadium, already on high ground, 7 minutes before the performance they had come to watch. The flow swept past below them. There was no escape. They simply happened to be standing in the one place that held. In the years that followed, a legend spread. A circus clown named Cucharita.
In the years that followed, a legend spread. A bullshit legend, probably. What the heck? So we know what the clowns are. They're like the fallen angel types.
Led the children up the hill like a Pied Piper, keeping them together while the city below disappeared. No document from 1970 confirms this version. Some of those children tried to run back down toward their parents. The legend may be bigger than the truth. But the children were still there when the flow passed.
So of course they would throw in the dark clown, right? Which is the fallen angels. That's a representation of the fallen angels. So and the children ran to the white Christ, and they were saved. And so they have to throw in the dark angel stuff, right? The clowns. All right. So just want to share that with you. Now, this mud flood basically went a lot further. I think there was 20,000 in that town. I think it was like upwards of 60 to 70,000. It could be, the numbers could be a little bit off, but it went down through rivers and created blocks, and the blocks of the river broke and more people died. So quite a few more people died during this time and were buried. And now in this town itself, they were buried to the point where they said no digging, right? Kind of like Vesuvius, going off and, burying Pompeii. They're probably like back then, they're like no digging, right? Just let it be a burial place. So this town, Yungay, has become, a big cemetery, and they won't let people dig there. Who knows? Maybe a couple thousand years from now, somebody will discover it. Like, oh, look, there's a whole town buried here. What were they like back then? So, that's kind of the way these things happen. All right. So I believe we're going to see a lot more of that. Now, Hunter Biden is now living abroad as legal troubles mount. Court filing reveals the embattled former first son, Hunter Biden, doesn't have daddy there to protect him anymore, has reportedly moved out of the United States amid mounting legal issues just a year after his father left the presidential office in 2025. So his attorney says Mr. Biden lives abroad. He cannot pay his current lawyers. All that fraud money that went to him, and of course the hunter body on a laptop with all that filth on it. That's why is that still covered up? It's like insane. But that was part of the cover up. They were like, oh, that's Russian disinformation to destroy Biden so that he won't be elected in office. And then people later were like, I wouldn't have voted. Democrats later were like, I wouldn't have voted for Biden if I knew that was real. Yeah. Okay. Well, you need to get clued up, don't you? Right. But I think a lot of those people have been. Now, Colorado family forced to say goodbye to 1-year-old son after routine respiratory illness spirals into tragedy. So, yeah, that big pharma, corrupt thing that tries to kill all of us. Now, where did that start? Remember Obamacare, right? Obamacare. Yeah. So he came in and he basically let the big pharma come in and start to control, right? The insurance companies, all that. He basically said, if it's not FDA approved, so the energy enhancer that was made for the Navy SEALs, it had to go because it wasn't FDA approved. Now, when you get FDA approval, you're like, well, then we can do whatever. Then we can sell to everybody, and all the doctors and all the hospitals are like, we're gonna be rich. No, because the FDA then controls you. They own you, and if there's something about your product that they're maybe not making enough money on, or it's going to interfere with another product they want to have come out, and they're going to make more money on it, they will pull the rug. And we've seen a lot of products out there they've done that too. So the product that was helping Navy SEALs with energy enhancement and so forth got pushed out. So fortunately, with David Schmidt say, well, I'll just take it over here and do it myself then. And that's what he did. And now we have a LifeWave water machine. And I'm drinking some of that water right now. Yep. And I'm drinking it with Celergize. Celergize is basically activate Celergize, AM, PM, and the X39 and the water machine. All those three things are going to take you to the next level. It's going to help you push past the Biden, Obama, big pharma control system. All right. They have really come after this. Now I've heard several stories since I've been here. Of course, I have a fantastic story of my own with the LifeWave water machine, but I've heard several of them. There were people that were, of course, I can't say that this same results will happen for everybody. All right. Because big pharma wants to restrict you from saying all the great things that it will do because they want to have control, but they can't control everything. Otherwise, no one will get their stuff because they're like, well, you guys are manipulating, controlling the market. Yeah. Right. But they can't be too openly controlling. Otherwise, they'll lose credibility. Right. But they're squeezing. We saw the same thing with the COVID vaccination, all the death and destruction that happened from that. Right. And that's just my opinion. Maybe it didn't happen. Right. Maybe it's not ongoing. I don't know. But we're going to talk about that too. All right. But you have a fabulous thing that some people have actually used the water, the LifeWave water, which basically infuses light into the water, and it goes into your body and does amazing things. And some of those amazing things are helping people that were in hospice that were getting ready to go away, unfortunately, get up and start to lead very active lives again. Wow. But those are just isolated incidences at this point. Maybe it would help you, maybe not. But wouldn't it be worth a try? And that's about all I can say about that. So suppression and little children, toddlers dying in Colorado is what we're seeing right now. All right. So respiratory illness turned into once the family, unfortunately, took that child into the hospital system, big pharma system, that child is brain dead. And it's just a little case of the flu and the croup and escalated into brain death following multiple hospital visits, right? All right, so we know Colorado is super corrupt, and I guess that corruption spreads into every aspect, right? Because once corruption is allowed to come in, that is done through their governor, and it was, of course, Tina Peters was trying to expose that corruption, and she's in prison. In California, you know, who's that one Nick guy that's like, you know, exposed all that stuff in Minnesota, and now he's over in California. Well, they're trying to pass a law where if there is an illegal or a foreign entity conducting business in California and it's corrupt, you can have an outside source like Nick come in and you know, expose that. It's against Nick Shirley. Thank you. So Nick Shirley is blowing the whistle. Are people listening? We'll see. Maybe California's going to pass a law where no one can expose their corruption, right? It's illegal. You cannot expose our corruption. Wow. So that's how bad the corruption is in Cali. Going back to Cali. Going back to Cali. I don't think so. Right. So let's look at HIV. HIV seems to be on the rise in big cities. What could it be? What could it be? Well, it seems to have coincided with the vaccination, but there's other ideas of what's causing that. Unprotected sex, is that why? Let's look.
For the first time in decades, HIV infections are on the rise here in Chicago. They jumped about 29% between 2022 and in 2024. Joining me this morning to discuss this is Dr. Anu Hazra. He's an associate professor of medicine at the University of Chicago, specializing in infectious diseases. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the headline here. What is driving this increase, and are you seeing any pattern that could be leading to this rise in cases?
Yeah, I think people have a lot of potential hypotheses of why we're seeing about a 30% increase for the past 2 years. I think the biggest impact factor is potentially COVID, and understanding that a lot of folks were disengaged from medical care, from continuity care, from preventative care during a really distinct.
See how they make excuses for this? I love it. I love to see this stuff. So obvious. Well, because people were cut off from care. So they weren't getting the care they normally get from the hospital because they were only taking COVID patients. And so all those people that were dying, that were supposed to get operations and so forth, they died because they had COVID. No, they died because you were supposed to like operate on them. And then they did the test on them, and of course they died from COVID, right? So the corrupt test that you could be the healthiest person on the planet with no infections, nothing going on in your system, and they would do a test on you, and that test would say, "Oh, you have COVID." Yeah, remember those days? So dark, so mysterious how that happened. But so many people fell for that, kind of like, you know. People fell for the disinformation about the moon landings, right? It didn't happen. It doesn't exist. We've never been to the moon. All right, very good. Did you get your COVID shot? If you did, you better get on LifeWave. Right?
Time, and now we're sort of seeing the lingering effects of what occurred about 6 years ago. And then the other thing to note is about half of these new infections, of the 800 plus new infections, are in Latinx populations. And so trying to understand how we can increase or improve services to more marginalized populations.
All right. Critical thinkers? I don't know. But it seems to be some people got affected more than others. Will they do a study and say, did more Hispanics fall for the COVID live shot or what? I don't know. But it seems like and this is not just in Chicago, guys. Where else do you think it might be? It's in New York. It's in LA. It's everywhere where there were vaccinations.
City is super important.
What does that process look like? Because you pointed out the sharp rise, especially in Latino populations. So how do you get the message out?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is community-based outreach. A lot of it, which is, has been in the past federally funded or state-funded work done by really great community organizations that are embedded across these populations that may not have the best access to healthcare, but making sure they have access to.
But continue to be the majority of the new cases. And these are only of the cases that they know of. There's a ton of people that never get tested. They never get discovered. They don't go to the doctor. And so when you see this jump, there's two caveats to this, right? A, this is just the most recent data, but it's still at least a year old, right? Because we still freshly into 2026. They've only been able to measure 2023, 2024 compared to the years prior. And then you also have to factor in, we still got to get the 2025 data, which I'm pretty sure that it goes up much more from there because people were back outside. And a smaller portion of the population in Chicago versus the majority of the cases, which basically tells you that everybody is just humping on everybody. And it's never going to be cool to find yourself out there with HIV. I remember when Magic Johnson had announced that he had HIV, and all of the players in the NBA was a lot more skeptical about even playing with him because we as a society were largely unfamiliar with how you even transmit it. Now, people have a choice. You have a choice of if you want to engage or participate in unprotected sex, or you want to engage with somebody prior to getting married. And it's not even enough to just say, hey, what's your mind chart?
All right. So good on Anton Daniels for reporting on this. Is it because of unprotected sex? Probably some of that is. My thoughts are that it is because of all the epidemiologists that were suppressed during the COVID vaccination program were warning that we would see a massive rise in HIV. So suppression of the immune system from the vaccination, mRNA vaccination, is that what's doing it? That's what they said back then. I don't know. I'm not an expert. But when I just look at information, I'm very observant. I've been talking, lots of us have been talking about this for years, that we would see this stuff start to really accelerate several years down the road as people's immune systems start to collapse, start to get compromised. All right. So again, we've seen through testing that the X39 is helping people that have been vaccinated. All right. Will it help everybody? I don't know. Right. So would it be worth it to you to find out, to actually use X39 and stay healthy like me and other people, and then a lot of people that have been vaccinated? I think so. But, it's up to you. They're not going to do the studies on this, guys, because then they'll be held accountable. And then all of the massive fraud. Oh, no, the Democrats don't do fraud. Joe Biden didn't push that and said, you better get that or you're not going to have a job. Or, all the stuff that they did to, pushing on the military and so forth. It was trying to take down the system, collapse the system, break the system. It's still happening, right? Now there are ways, a lot of you guys are detoxing, doing a lot of stuff, the X39 and Celergize, and now the water machine. Can you get the water machine at this point? Only if you're a brand partner. And at this point, it's a waiting list because it sold out so fast because people have been hearing some good things about it. And hopefully they're, putting more and more machines out there. A lot of people in my group got it because we were talking about it. So a lot of people got that machine very quickly. There's still more people getting it if you get on the waiting list. So go on my LifeWave account. Sign up if you're not there yet. If you are, going to your back office and go into where they have the LifeWave picture. Click on that, and there's a waiting list button. Get on the waiting list, and when it's available, depending on where you're at on the waiting list. And I think that within a couple weeks or so, they should have all of the back orders filled, and it starts to come ready for more people within LifeWave, retail customers, and then the preferred customers and so forth, right? Then eventually it'll be available to the general population in the United States, and then eventually to other countries. So it's one of those that's absolutely, I'm on the preferred partner list. Very good. All right. So you'll be able to get on that list or order hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So it's coming. Marines move to the front. Maybe the Marines can move to the front. They should be able to. There was for quietly people that had some serious issues that were probably going to pass. They got a LifeWave machine, water machine, X2O, and they're still with us. A lot of those people. So it will be something that's going to be very valuable. But it's not going to be valuable if you don't use it. All right, that's the issue with a lot of this stuff. People just don't start. The way to start right now is X39 and the Celergize. So last few things. Now they said COVID vaccines and COVID-19 and people living with HIV. So they try to push people that actually had HIV to get COVID vaccinated. I wonder how that worked out for them. We're not going to see those studies, guys. So you're not going to see the studies where, and we talked about this. I showed it early on. Those YouTube channels got taken down. But I was showing that that stuff, that HIV stuff, in it, in that thing that went in your arm, in it, right? So it was exposed by people. It was exposed by people. All right. All right. Canadians are getting the hell out of Canada, right? On a massive scale. If, they don't start to, make some of those provinces up there states, then everybody's going to leave Canada, right? And come to the United States.
The study finds nearly half of the most productive Canadians are fleeing to the United States, even as third-world migrants now make up 98% of Canada's population growth. Canada is scooping up the gravel and sending the gems to America. The data comes from the Bank of Canada, Canada's Federal Reserve, who reports 40% of Canadians who would rank in the top 10% of earnings have already left to the U.S. These are doctors, engineers, scientists, finance, tech, the exact fields where there is a shortage in Canada. It brings Canadians living in the U.S. to 1.1 million. That's equivalent to 10 million Americans living in Canada. So a Canadian is now 59 times more likely to live in the U.S. than an American in Canada. Another recent study found 2/3 of Canadian grad students plan to leave Canada, pocketing their taxpayer-subsidized education. 10 years ago, that was 1 in 5. Last one out, turn in the tube. Bloomberg recently profiled a young Vietnamese.
All right. So Canada is also coming up with a kind of like California, where you're not going to be able to expose the fraud. So Canada is going to come out with a bill or something where if you leave Canada, you're going to have to pay $500,000. It's an exit fee. $500,000. I heard 500, then I heard 300,000, whatever it's going to be. Wow. You better get the hell out of Canada now while you can. I said that when COVID started. I said, you guys better get the hell out of Canada. I know a lot of people listen to me. Right? It may be getting close to the point where you're not going to be able to leave Canada. So your last chance, your last window of opportunity. Goodbye, Canada. Bye-bye, Canada. All right. We'll go up there and pick the pieces back up when it's completely collapsed and rebuild. We'll make it the 51st state. So, Europe is accelerating a NATO fallback plan in case Trump pulls out. So they're already, brought this up several days ago, and then, wow, this comes out. So, you kind of can see this stuff, kind of like the HIV in that shot thing. So Europe is accelerating a NATO fallback plan in case Trump pulls out. The continent is drawing up a contingency for greater European involvement as tensions rise over Iran war. But wasn't it over Friday? Oh, not now? Yeah. A fallback plan to ensure Europe can defend itself. Never going to happen. All right. It didn't during the last Soviet invasion. All right. This time, no one's going to stop the Soviet invasion because Europe is a deep state. And now, with Russia having thrown off the deep state, remember the Soviet Union? That was a deep state. Russians got tired of it. I guess Europeans haven't gotten tired of their deep state, so they're not going to throw it off. So Europe, there's help coming. Russia. All right. The plan's advancing informally through side discussions and over dinner meetings in and around the North Atlantic Treaty Organization aren't intended to rival the current alliance, participants said. European officials are aiming to preserve deterrence against Russia, operational continuity, and nuclear credibility if Washington withdraws forces from Europe or refuses to come to its defense. Refuses to come to its defense, like you guys refuse to come, let us even use our bases that we have in your countries to defend you, or fly over your countries to go somewhere to defend you, to take out our nuclear threat from savages that would absolutely have been used against you guys in Europe. So it's not looking good for Europe. Bye-bye, Europe. All right. So a lot of stuff happening out there. It's basically, like I said, info probes are happening to see where the consciousness is at. There's been some failures, all right? But there's been some successes. So we'll see, more of these probes that happen. President Trump looking like Jesus and healing people when right above him is a demonic figure. So has it been compromised? Yeah, of course. All right. The church has been compromised. It's demonic. Look at this, the snake head. That's the Vatican's, where they have people come in and view the Pope, and he sits on a throne looking thing, and behind him looks like some kind of demonic scene from hell. All right. It's like, what kind of viewing room is that? Like crazy. But same thing. The truth is out there. People don't want to push back on it. It continues and pushes further and further and further until it's all gone. Will it happen in America? Ain't going to happen. Promise you. If we even get to the point, which I doubt, that we have a compromised election again, it will going to be bad. It's going to be bad. It'll be very bad. All right. Because we're not going to let them come in and run us out of our country and throw us in gulags like they did during the Biden administration. Right. Not going to happen again. They've already said that, like I said, they've already said that they're going to come out. They're going to get back in. They're going to get back in office, and they're going to put all the judges they need to make sure this never happens again, that they don't have complete and utter control. Right. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Right. There's going to be massive pushback all the way up into the elections. Right. This summer, pushback. Congress gets back in and Senate gets back in office. The pushback on them is going to be relentless. Right. And then the takedown, I think, of corrupt congressional leaders and senators and so forth is going to start to really pick up speed. We may not even be able to have an election, which I think is a very high possibility, because there's going to be so many people taken out of office. All right. All right. Hoping that happens, because, boy, we need to clean that cesspool up so much. The swamp. The swamp is no longer a swamp. It's a sewage pond. All right. Swamp is like clean compared to what's going on in Congress and Senate now. That is a cesspool. Nasty. Nasty. All right, guys. Lots of love. Stay in the love vibration. And we'll see you guys next time.